people have this erroneous notion about observant dating, that it's like you put these two people in a room together and you're like, that's it. It's not like that.
Welcome back to Cross-Examine, where students explore big Jewish ideas. My name is David, I'm a recent graduate from CSUN with a degree in business law.
I'm Alexandra Lohmeyer. I go to the University of Pittsburgh and I study biological science.
Hi, I'm Rivkah Slonim. My husband and I have been running the Chabad at Binghamton University since 1984. In case you're doing the math, that makes me 22.
Let's start with the first question. What is a shaddaf?
What is a shaddaf? It's a Hebrew word for two people who meet via an introduction by a third party who knows them well or knows them somewhat well and feels like they have a pretty good chance of maybe hitting it off. It's not what it sounds like. It's not like Fiddler on the Roof, where two old fathers are sitting in the back of the store and one says, oh, my daughter's lame, and the other one says, oh, my son is hard of hearing, and they're like, great match, that's it, let's go to the chuppah. It's not like that at all. It's simply an intelligent way to date, where you research just a little bit about the person you're going to date. Hey, we research everything, like what school we're going to go to. People often go check out 5, 6, 7 schools because they're going to spend 4 years there. Certainly with our money, we research our investments. And all of a sudden, when it comes to our most important investment of our entire lives and all of our emotional resources, we just think we're going to fall in love like slipping on the ice. That's ridiculous. So a shaddaf, an intelligent way to date.
My question is, how does Judaism play into modern concepts like feminism?
Well, I have a better question for you. How does modernity play into Jewish concepts, which are far more progressive? So feminism is starting to catch up with Judaism. It's getting there because Judaism always taught that God creates no junk, nothing for naught. So God created women and men and women. They each are distinctive. They each have their distinctive energies. The big lie that feminism is supposed to battle is that somehow women are less worthy than men. But Judaism never suffered from that fallacious concern. So we're catching up as a world. Johnny come late, but better late than never.
So my second question is, why is it so important to date or marry Jewish?
Well, how could it not be important? I think we need to remember a very pivotal idea in Jewish philosophy, and that is that every person comes down into this world with only half of their soul encased in their body, and the other half is in another person, and they're meant to be reunited when they get married. If you're a Jewish person, the other half of your soul can only be in another Jewish person. So for starters, who would want to spend the rest of their life without the other half of themselves? The whole question is only a question if you don't understand this point of departure. Now, on a much more pragmatic level, no matter how you cut it, no matter what you call yourself, a cultural Jew, a Jew by happenstance, you're different. You know, we've spent so much of our history trying to blend in, and history has shown us that we can't. Every time we try to blend in and we think we finally made it, society regurgitates us as distinctly Jewish and different. So we might as well own that. And if you're going to get married to somebody, why would you want to get married to somebody who's not part of that distinctive history and legacy and heritage? You're always going to see the world differently. It's inevitable.
Why is it so important for somebody who doesn't identify so much as Jewish to still marry somebody Jewish or date in the Jewish pool?
That's a really great question. And that's an important question, whether you're talking about dating Jewishly or you're just talking about dating. You always want to date with a long view. You don't want to just think about now. You want to think about what this is going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and so on and so forth. So it's just a matter of fact that when people are younger, they think less about religion, but as they get older And as life happens and children enter the mix and so on and so forth, religion tends to take up a larger space. And so while young people who might be very secular, very peripherally identified as Jewish, might not find it a problem to date someone who's not Jewish right now, they really would do well to think about their life as it unfolds. Now, this is not to say that it's impossible for a Jew and a non-Jew to be married happily. It is possible, but it's not possible to be married in the most wholesome manner. Because again, going back to our previous question, the other half of you isn't someone else. Sometimes it's going to manifest very dramatically. It could be when there's some kind of incident across the world and Jews are knifed or bombed or hunted down for no reason at all except for their being Jewish. And invariably, the Jewish spouse is going to identify with that differently than the non-Jewish spouse. Sometimes it gets ugly, where you're just sitting at a dinner, somebody has a little bit too much to drink, and all of a sudden they see something really horrible about Jews, and you're like, who are you? And sometimes it never happens. But it's important to think about the long view. And that's true for everything. Like, you don't want to be dating someone who's great right now and a lot of fun, but hates kids. If you want to have kids, you don't get married to someone who hates kids or is even lukewarm about kids.
And about kids, so how would you recommend somebody goes about like raising their children to be Jewish and have those Jewish values?
Raising kids, the most humbling thing in the world, the most difficult, the most surprising, the most unexpected. And here's the most unexpected aspect. Raising children is about raising yourself. So if you want to raise children with a healthy sense of connection to their Jewish heritage and a pride and a joy in that heritage, that has to be you. That has to be you. Your kids are most often not going to do things they haven't seen you model. Yeah, sometimes children take a different direction than their parents, but that's taking a gamble. And even when they do, that's on the deepest level, we still go back to how we were raised. So you want to raise happy, healthy, Jewish kids who are proud of who they are? You got to be happy, healthy, proud Jewish. And that takes learning, continued study, and experiential living.
So this is a question that actually is pretty personal to me, but what place is there for being observant on your average secular college campus?
A fine place, a wonderful place, not always easy, not always smooth. But what is the university if not a place for exploring ideas, for living those ideas and ideals? So my experience is, if you want it, you can do it. Find a Chabad Rebbetzin, a rabbi that will help you and support you. But there's a fine place for Jewish kids to be observant. Of course, there are universities where it's easier than others, but it's doable. You got this.
So how would I deal with having to interact with so many secular people in my environment? There's an environment that generally clashes with my desire to be observant in the first place.
It's difficult, but not impossible. You got to find your moxie, find your chutzpah. Don't be timid. Don't apologize for who you are. You don't have to be abrasive about it, but be clear and be proud. You have nothing to back down about, and you have nothing to apologize for.
So transitioning back to like the dating questions, what are the benefits to being shomer? Like,
first, I'll define the term you're asking me about.
Yeah, define.
Yeah, so you asked me about being shomer. In Hebrew, that's defined as being attentive to or watching over. And colloquially, it means not being physical with people of the opposite gender to whom you're not married or to whom you're not related by blood. What are the benefits? There are many and varied. But the simplest way to put this is this. As I said earlier, you want to date intelligently, okay? Charles Darwin spoke about how man breeds himself with much less attention to lineage and pedigree than he breeds his horses. That's ridiculous. That's totally ridiculous. So we want to be intelligent about this. As soon as you involve the physical, it's hard to remain objective. It's hard to remain intelligent. For women more than for men, there's a hormonal cocktail that streams through your body and makes you feel a lot more connected to this person than you really are. This is a scientific fact, okay? And so it's hard. It's hard not to engage physically, but ultimately, it's the only way you're going to figure out if this is a person you want to spend the rest of your life with. Now, if you're going to tell me, I'm not talking about the rest of my life, I just want to have fun, hey, it's your life, honey bunch. But with all that fun comes a lot of pain. If I had a half a penny for every girl I saw in tears after a hookup, I could own this place.
Although it may seem like a very intelligent way of dating, being shomer, how could you reasonably expect somebody to start doing that? Or maybe some steps to help someone who wants to achieve that goal, who doesn't really have any connection to being shomer in their daily life?
Like everything else, it's not all or nothing. A little bit is better than nothing. And hey, I've overheard people talking for almost 40 years now on campuses, okay? And what people say about the people that are easy to get into bed behind their back, it's not pretty. So let's be real here, okay? You can't be shomer, okay? But don't make yourself into a piece of trash. Don't go downtown thinking you'll have no idea where I'm going to wake up. Don't do it. It'll be better all around. You won't be missing out. I promise. You'll come out ahead. Guys like the girl who's hard to get. And you guys don't deserve easy catches. You should work for it intelligently. And it's not fair to play around, bring somebody to the edge, and then say, oh, I'm shomer. No, don't do that either.
So are there challenges to dating in such a small population as the Jews being such a small group of people?
Only if you don't go about this intelligently. Do I sound like a broken record? That's because I am, okay? I'm surprised by the amount of intelligent people that will come crying to me that they have nobody to date. Well, why'd you put yourself in a situation where there's nobody to date? Don't go to a medical school where there are no other Jewish medical students. Don't do dental school in the middle of Arkansas. So you have a list of criteria for where you're going to place yourself and make this one of them.
So you should try to go to a location where there are Jewish people and
you should actually think about what's the most important thing of your life and plan to do this successfully.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's like novel, right?
Yeah,
totally.
great idea.
Yeah, mind-boggling.
Following up on that, what steps do you think someone could take to start that intelligent dating process that you've talked about? Let's say someone's ready for marriage, but they don't have anybody. How would they start that shaddaf process as you were talking about?
Well, it all begins in their mind. They have to be honest with themselves. They have to ask themselves what they want. Are they ready to stop playing around and start being serious? And as soon as you make that switch in your mind, you're putting out a different vibe. And people respond to that vibe. It's really incredible, but they do, So you attract the kind of people that you welcome into your orbit. And as soon as you put out that vibe, like, I'm serious, I'm not playing around, I'm not just looking for a hookup, then you're in a better position to find somebody who is similarly looking for serious. Now, that may not be the right person, but at least you're in the ballpark.
So how do you put out that vibe that says, I'm serious about dating or, marriage? Like, how do you go about that?
First of all, you don't go downtown half naked. That's number one. And then you the rest is commentary.
This is kind of current. So what are your opinions and ideas on popular Jewish dating apps like J-Swipe or Locks Club, if you're familiar with both of those?
Where do you think I live, in a bathtub? Hey, I've seen a lot of people get married through those apps. So again, as long as you're swiping intelligently, you're filtering intelligently, it could be a way. It can work. I don't close down any conduits. I want Jewish people to marry Jewish, so whatever works.
It's kind of like putting yourself, like we talked about earlier, in a Jewish setting. Because now you're with a group of...
Whether in the universe or the metaverse,
Yeah.
you got to put yourself in a Jewish environment.
I've noticed a lot of the problems that people becoming religious have, that more often than not, people that are very religious just don't put themselves in those situations in the first place, and that's how they avoid the problem as opposed to finding a solution.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that true for life in general?
Right, but I feel like so often I'm just chasing solutions.
Yeah, you got to think prophylactically
So
and proactively.
What about when you're in a place, like you live in an area where there's not so many Jews? Like, how do you go about the dating scene there? You know, finding somebody. Would you say like move, or what if you don't want to like move and change your whole thing?
If it's possible, move. If you came to this realization after you put yourself in a situation, which could happen, happens often, if it's possible for you to pick up, move. If it's not possible, try to date actively, long distance. Try to go somewhere for weekends where there's a larger, Jewish cohort. Do what you can. Look, there's a senior partner in all of this, and that's God. And you got to let her do her work too. So you have to put out your best efforts, and God has to do God's work. And we're taught that ever since God created the universe, God has been bringing people together for marriage. Full-time job.
Beautiful.
But you got to make room in your life for God to do that work.
Do religious Jews have a lot in common with their spouses other than Judaism?
No. Why would they have to? All they have to do is pair off and reproduce and make more Jewish babies, right? Why would they get married to somebody they have anything in common with? It reminds me of a question I got asked, like 25 years ago. I was somewhere for a weekend and people asked me, why do all the Hasidic people look like penguins? They all look the same. They're all dressed in black and white. And then I remember coming back onto campus like that Monday, everybody was wearing jeans, everybody was wearing a t-shirt, and everybody was wearing a North Face jacket. I was like, why does everybody look the same? Oh, only Hasidic Jews look the same. Yeah, so no, observant Jews don't have to have anything in common. They don't have to feel chemistry or any kind of emotional attachment. No. Obs, you need to be emotionally engaged. You need to feel attracted. You need to feel like you can build a life together. The difference is you're not starting from the physical, okay? People need to engage. The question is, are you going to engage from the outside in and maybe never even get into the inside because you get so stuck on the outside? Or are you going to engage from the inside working outward? So in religious dating, it's a lot about connecting from the inside going outward. But there's a lot of steps, and you need to be able to connect on many different levels. You need to be able to respect each other, feel emotionally excited and attached, but more than anything else, have a shared vision for how you want to build your life together. So people ask me all the time, in really Orthodox circles, young men and women don't have a lot of interface. And then all of a sudden, they're dating. Do they get overwhelmed by the feeling of just speaking with a guy or a girl? Can that cloud everything and obfuscate the whole experience for them? I think that we're hardwired and soft-wired to feel attraction, to feel connection, and we can sort that out. And the fact that we're speaking intelligently, there's that word again, for most of the time, gives you an opportunity to find out, who is this person? Do we see the world the same way? Do we share common values? Do we share a vision? And I think we can figure it out. I did. My kids did. So I think it works. I think it works really well.
So was there pressure on both you and your husband when you started dating or getting married?
A little bit, because I was the oldest kid and he was the oldest kid. So it's like, I remember coming home from our first date and my parents run down the step and they're like, how was it? And I don't know why I was so mean to them at the time, but I said, it was okay. I don't know what they expected. Like, I'm going to be levitating. There's going to be like this light, this aura radiating from my head. I was like, it's okay. They were like, would you see him again? I was like, yeah, if he wants to see me. But in actuality, we really clicked and I had a really good time. But I didn't feel pressure. You know, I knew my parents were kind of like anxious for this to work, but if it wouldn't work, I knew I'd meet another guy. I'd meet another guy. I'd meet another guy till I meet the right person. People have this erroneous notion about observant dating, that it's like you put these two people in a room together and you're like, that's it. It's not like that.
So about dating Jewish, is it prejudice to only date Jews? And could I date a non-Jew if we really love each other and it'll convert later?
Great questions. But I'm going to ask you a personal question, David. What's your type? Be honest. What's your type?
My type?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Wow.
I don't know. My type's Jewish already.
Don't be so religious. What's your type?
I don't know. I like taller girls.
Tall girls. What else? Keep going.
Curly hair.
Curly hair.
What
What color are her eyes?
Probably lighter.
Lighter. Curly hair. Tall.
Mhm.
Is that prejudice?
Probably. Yeah.
We all have our biases, otherwise known as what we're attracted to, what's important to us. Is that okay? Is that a sin? Is that a crime? No. That's who you are. That's what makes you tick. And that's why you get married to one person and not 600,000 other people. So people have an idea of who they'd like to marry. They don't always marry that idea. But they begin with a list. Sometimes life surprises you. And a lot of the things on your original list are not what end up being in your spouse. But that's okay. You're entitled to your original list. And some of the things on your list, I would hope, again, if you're dating intelligently, are things that are non-negotiable. And for a Jew, surprise, surprise, I strongly believe it should be non-negotiable to marry a Jew. And that's not prejudice. That is your prerogative. Nobody can be told who to marry. You can't legislate that. Everybody makes choices about that, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Now, it's often the case that you meet somebody, they're not Jewish. A Jewish person can become very emotionally entangled with somebody who isn't Jewish. And some of the time, that person ends up converting. If they convert properly, if it's a proper conversion, then that was God's plan. That was the door through which they should walk into the Jewish family. We embrace converts wholeheartedly. We believe that that Jewish soul is kind of incarcerated within them until the conversion process. But once it's opened, they're as Jewish as Moses, Aaron, Miriam. So yeah, that sometimes happens. I've seen that in many of those cases, it's the Jewish person who has a harder time, because a non-Jewish person, if they're serious about this and sincere, they're ready to do the work. But now the Jewish person has to decide, do I really want to become more observant? Do I really want to marry somebody who's going to take all this stuff seriously? That becomes a challenge.
It goes back to intelligent dating.
Not intelligent dating, yeah. Can't forget it.
ID.
ID.
ID. So what would you say to somebody, especially in a college setting where maybe they've like given up on intelligent dating? Like they feel like there's no, their other half is not out there for them. Like, what would you say?
Well, definitely don't go the route of unintelligent dating. Because if you're pretty sure your other half is not out there, then, I don't know, find something else to do. But don't put yourself out there like an idiot, because you'll only get hurt.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so nice meeting you guys.